We are redoing our talk. Doug and I had done a great talk, but nobody could hear us. Some of you might say, that's not fair. And you're right. It's not. It was a condition that changed. Let's talk about fairness today. Most of us believe that life is not fair, and we either just get over it or we try to fix it. The real question is, what if there's more to the story? What will you do with the truth? Doug's joining me again.
Again, we're hoping that it's not because I'm on here that
It stopped working. Oh, it stopped working last week too. I had to redo it the second time. I really appreciate those who let us know.
we just did a half an hour. It was gold, right? But you'll never know. I am sitting here after it's been clear that we had no audio for that whole half an hour, thinking that is just not fair. And then realizing, duh.
That's what happens with life. What do you do with it? What are you going to do? So we're doing it again. And, we follow the rules. We did our part. We stayed late.
Fairness isn't an issue with this, right? We will say, oh, it's just not fair. I put all this time into it. I got other things that I got to do and blah, blah, blah. The answer is, how important is this? It's important enough to do it again because it didn't come out right the first time. It's not a matter of fairness. It's a matter of we're going to take our lumps and move on.
Yep. Sometimes it could be another situation where you're working hard and you feel overlooked, underappreciated, maybe even blamed. I had that happen a lot. Getting blamed for something you didn't do. There may be some injustice there. You're not asking for special treatment. You just want things to make sense. Today, it didn't make sense. It gave us all the signals once we got started. It was working until lovely Yvette and Katie came on and said,
Not so fast.
we can't hear you.
Exactly.
Life isn't fair, or is it? Before I continue, just so you know, you can go to our Stress Intelligence channel. It's youtube.com/ampersand at Stress Intelligence. And you can get these tools, these truths, these discussions on sometimes tough topics. I knew today was going to be tough. That's the reason I called Doug in to help with this, because I have my way to look at fairness, and he looks at it in another perspective because these topics are not just black and white. They involve people. We talked about that. Talking about people, a place that we both went but didn't know each other, West Point. When we both were in the class, see how I always say me, but it's really both of us were in the same class at West Point, which was the first class that had women. Now, Doug came from a family with 4 sisters and 2 stepsisters. I say they trained him very well.
Except when they didn't.
He really did well there with my women classmates. Told me they liked Doug. I'm telling you, they didn't like everybody because everybody was put under extreme stress because it was a huge change. Change can cause that. And when you make a change, is it fair? Is it fair to everyone? They kept saying, quit changing the rules for the women. Well, certain things had to change. They had to create bathrooms for us. And then they were like, the men can't go in there like they can with the other men. Therefore, that's not fair. There were a whole lot of things that happened. It could be men or women, had people who wrote us decided that we were either going to be run out or we were going to be fixed. When they gave us that added attention, it was not pretty. It was very uncomfortable. It was double standard. Illegal things would happen, like holding us after a certain time period where you're not supposed to. Hazing, yelling, insulting, shaming, all those things that they were attempting to do. The leader who had been on my case walked by the room knowing that it was not allowed at that time and let it happen anyway. Now, was life fair? He later got relieved of command because someone who breaks the rules like that often breaks it in other ways. But at the moment, that seemed like an awful steep hill for me to climb. It would have been easy to let that unfairness really harden me and give up. Half our women did have to leave for whatever
for
reason.
whatever reason.
I was lucky. My company was fairly supportive. Other companies were not. They literally drove the women out of their companies. No women lasted in those companies. I focused on what I could control. I think that was a key part of whatever's going to happen. Early on, we had a big discussion about fairness because you can come at it as a condition, which the weather changes, or a storm hits, or the light changes, where it goes from green, yellow to red. That is a conditional thing. Is it fair or not that it happens more often to others than us? Other ways, it's a moral. Maybe you can go into that a little bit about what the difference is in fairness.
When we had our conversation this morning about it, Deborah said, "Hey, this is a concept I think is important to talk about right now." I said, "Yeah, absolutely. I mean, fairness is a moral concept. It is." She says, "Yeah, most people are like, life isn't fair." And I was like, "That's kind of a throwaway line." And she said, "No, that's part of the back and forth of life isn't fair. In a way, it's a reaction to a situation that we feel like we have no control over. And seems to be an injustice has occurred. Those are factual perspectives. Our ability to address some of that is available, but there are other parts that are not. For me, it's the place where we know the difference between right and wrong. That's the moral judgment that is a part of this fairness. Is it fair or not piece of it? To say life isn't fair, that's a way of saying I'm not happy with how this has turned out, which is really an emotional reaction. It's okay to have emotional reaction as long as it's not the guiding star for what your response is going to be.
I think that what triggered it really for me is if you're an empath like I am, you don't want to be reading things that are people in pain. But I did last night. It was a family who had come to our country to try to make a better life. They technically followed the rules. They went through the border check in. They applied for asylum. They came into the country. They worked hard in whatever jobs that they could find. Their kids went to school. They were providing a better life. Then things changed in the environment and they decided, well, I better leave now before I'm forced to leave, if that's what's going to happen. They were able to save enough money and they had bought a truck and they went across the border. Then everything was confiscated. They had $5,000 they had acquired, they had a truck, both were taken from them. So they had nothing. Thankfully, a relief agency was able to help them. But the point is, now they're living in utter poverty, relying on relatives who have nothing, essentially, sleeping on floors, not even beds. Their life changed in a moment, thinking that they were at least going to restart somewhere else, and that being snatched from them. Not wanting to leave where they were and then having to deal with even less and thinking unfair. Of course, for me, it's like, oh, I have to handle this. I can lose sleep over it. Perhaps you do too when you listen to stories like this. Our ability to deal with those horrible conditions is what will set us up for long term success. In the moment, it's tough. There's no getting around that. There's a lot of inequities. If we look at the disadvantages women face, it's huge. There's many disadvantages. They even have a date that they commemorate where a woman in the exact same job isn't paid the same. Life is tough, that's for sure. It can be. Working together and having some keys to success can help us rise above them. That's what I wanted to offer today to give you a way to remember. It's an acronym that will help you when you're in that situation, that emotional situation. We talked about the light changing. You can think that's unfair, right? And then someone blows past you and having to deal with that.
We'll get into that as you get into your acronym.
So the acronym is FAIR.
I'm sorry, what's that?
FAIR. Thank you. F-A-I-R. And for FAIR, it's face facts without flinching. This is a way to be honest about what's happening. It's not ignoring what's happening, it's being honest about it, not sugarcoating it, not minimizing it, but making sure that you haven't created something that isn't real. You call it out, at least to yourself. I like to think about when you're looking at the facts is an iceberg. I've given that metaphor before. You can measure above the surface, but on these contentious things, these emotional things, these tougher things, you want to have a better picture of what's going on, especially if people want to take it in a negative direction. Because it's easy to go negative, that's a knee jerk reaction. But if you want to really find out what's going on and rise above it, you have to dig deeper. So face the facts without flinching and do that research.
Okay.
Anything else?
Nope.
Okay. A is adjust your aim. It's easy when life seems unfair or conditions happen that make you want to focus on the negative. It traps you, it puts you in a loop, it wants to suck you in there and just stay in that horrible, righteous kind of way of being upset because something happened. But you can redirect your energy. We know that staying in that negative place isn't helpful. We've talked about that before. You want to go into that positive place. You want to aim toward your values. You want to aim toward your goals, your future, not revenge or resentment. All those negative emotions will drag you down and not allow you to succeed.
Yeah, I think the values piece is really important. I think that's a just makes all kinds of sense. This is the silly kind of red light. You're stopping, somebody else blows through it, and you're really upset and just not fair. Part of this is relying on how you want to be, who your best person is. That is based on what your values are. And having that opportunity here in Hilo, pretty small town, I had this little smiley face that I had put next to my rearview mirror on the driver's side. There would be times I would be like, I'm not happy with you.
Road rage.
Yeah, not happiness. But I would see that and it would remind me to rely on who I want to be. Because generally, you're only 1 or 2 degrees of Kevin Bacon away from somebody, who's driving next to you. So it just doesn't make sense to get angry at everybody because you probably know them or they're anti. If your values are to treat people with dignity and respect, then that's what you do, even in situations where it just isn't fair.
Yeah.
That was my Kermit the Frog. It didn't come off.
Very good.
Sorry.
But it's okay.
Sorry, Kermit.
We know how you meant it. So that helped him adjust his aim because that was a place he knew he was vulnerable. He knew that he could be upset out in public, and you make bad choices if you go into that negative resentment, feeling all those thoughts. The F was face the facts without flinching. A, adjust your aim. And I, introduce infinite win. Infinite win is something where I wrote a chapter in a book about, much like the 7 generations we hear with our tribal nations. It's looking not just what choice can benefit me, but also others, not just today, but also in the future. I really believe this is where leadership lives. This is taking a look at the broader context of what's happening and making sure it's not just about justice or fairness now and support now. It's about creating that ripple of goodness that can last. It can manifest itself in ways maybe you can't anticipate, but they're all good because that's how you planned it. In my case, it had to do with the job selection. This was a place where you have 2 people competing. Most people consider it a win-lose situation. We had 2 candidates. One was an inside candidate, one was an outside candidate. They were competing for a job that was working directly for me. I was on the panel. It had to be who had the most votes. What happened, the inside candidate, the group of people on the panel, remembered what she did 20 years ago. And they were not willing to give her a chance. They felt that she was not suited for the job. Now, I hadn't been there that long, but I had seen her in action. I didn't see any of that. But that's what their perception was of her. The other one was an outside candidate who, while never had worked for our organization or big organization, she was exceptionally talented and really capable, could do the job today. I was the tiebreaker. I went to the inside candidate. I told her, so, I was starting off like that. And she goes, I did terrible. I could have done so much better in the interview. And I said, I thought you did great. I just want you to know that if you had gotten the job, then you'd have to overcome some pretty significant barriers. And she said, what is that? It had to do with when she first came to the organization and made some mistakes, like all of us can when we're learning new jobs. I said, so it wouldn't be easy for you if you had this job. Do you still want it? And she looked at me and she said, are you offering me the job? I said, yes, if you still want it, but you need to understand those conditions. Some people are not going to give you a second chance. She burst into tears. She was so emotional because she wanted the job badly. She thought she didn't get it, was very disappointed. And then I was offering it to her, but I wanted her eyes wide open because it was not going to be easy, especially with at least two people on the panel who were very much against what she had done earlier. And the outside candidate, we thought she was great as well. And I talked to her and told her all the ways that she could do the job right now. And then I told her, but here are the ways that you're going to have to work on because you don't know our organization. That is an essential part of the job. You have to know something about the organization. I will help you because we have 45 other organizations just like this. I see you in this job. You could take other jobs in our organization, but I see you in the job that you applied for. I will help you with that. And she was like, I think that's the nicest rejection I've ever had. And the good news was she could go home to her family and talk about that. The better news, flash forward a year later, the person who was opposed most to the inside candidate came and apologized and said, I was wrong. You were perfect for this job. And the outside candidate who didn't get it, within 18 months, had gotten a job in our sister district, benefiting the entire organization for years to come. Looking at it, that's where you introduce infinite win. How can you do that when everyone else is calling it a zero-sum game? How can you make that infinite win? Deb Belkus and I worked on this concept over a decade ago. She's a leadership expert and been a leader in the top 500 companies. And this is just something that we don't find common. Yet, if you know you're dealing with people, fairness can be what is something you can measure, but it also can be, what about looking at the whole person? What about looking at the whole organization?
Fairness can be looked at as a metric, but I think that the way that you were using it in that particular situation was as an action. Sometimes we think of fairness in black, white, on, off, yes, no, get the job, don't get the job. Very transactional, very objective. It's a very objective kind of measurement, right? The interesting thing about that is that we have been trained to think about that way. Yeah. However, we are social beings, human beings, right? And we have this ingrained sense of something that is unfair, unjust. And our ability to take that ingrained sense of justice and fairness and utilize that in our dialogues and our conversations. What you did with that is that you took that and you expanded, you moved from transactional to transformational. You said the fairness component here has to do with how are both of these individuals going to be better as a result of this process, and how is the organization going to be better because of both of them.
Valuable. Yeah, valuable. The human reaction beyond what we only tap into a fraction of our potential, and seeing the potential, and we've talked about that in a previous talk, but seeing that potential and then realizing it because it doesn't have to be transactional.
I just think that we sometimes can take fairness and it becomes this objective standard when in fact objective standards are really a misnomer, right? Life is subjective. our sense of something that is fair or not fair, just or unjust. We have this sense of what those things are. Our ability to translate that is, I think, the next stage.
Okay, that's infinite win, the I. Now we're on to respond. Something you know that I will say, respond instead of react. Why is that important? Because reacting is natural. We have a knee jerk reaction, a built in hardwiring to react to things that we see as threats. And yet we have this thing called wisdom that can help us make better choices
What's that?
because it's powerful. Responding is powerful. It taps into that, but you have to pause, you have to take a breath. I was sucker punched last night. I felt that. I was sucker punched when people did those things to me at West Point at times, which felt deeply unfair. But you can let those moments pass, take that long view, and then choose your next move using that wise, grounded, in my case, woman that I was,
Mm-hmm.
and taking advantage of that. So that's the R. Okay?
Very nice.
So, why does this matter? Next time when life feels unfair to you, it's tempting to shrink. You may want to pull back, play small, stop trusting other people, stop trying, and quietly ask yourself, why am I even bothering? Right? But you didn't come this far to fold up now. You are not fragile. You are focused, you're capable, you can take that unfairness and you can build something from it and create and see that opportunity. Because when you respond, you're going to find there's tremendous amount of opportunities buried. Just like today when it didn't work first time. We're a little calmer, better energy. It's even better than before, I'm telling you. Everyone else can watch you rise. And that's your infinite win. My final request is that if you find these helpful or you think someone else will find them helpful, we have posted tools that will help you do better, choose better, help others better on our Stress Intelligence channel on YouTube. Go youtube.com/at Stress Intelligence. Protesting has a place, but do something more powerful than what you've been able to do so far. It may not show up today, but fairness may show up for you. Let grace go into that flow and wisdom and power to help you lead in that gap when we see those challenges we face today and know what's possible and make that happen no matter what. Because even when you feel life isn't fair, be strong anyway. Face it.
I really appreciate you talking about sometimes going in towards the fragile state. And I think that in some ways, the alternative to that, I don't know if opposite's the right way of phrasing it, but the alternative to that is to lean into your fierce self, right?
Be strong. Be fierce.
If it isn't fair, make it fair. Do the right thing. Be fierce for yourself and for others that you know are having a hard time.
Yeah. There's plenty of people having a hard time right now. But be armored. I say armor up. Take the tools that we provide so that you can strengthen yourself so it won't take you down in the process.
Okay, doke.
Okay? So be fair.
F-A-I-R.
F-A-I-R. Aloha. Thanks for listening.